You showed me how to reach for the best of myself. It's all good when you show the way, yeah. 'Cause even if I fall, ooh, I trust you'll stay, yeah, stay. And through the dark and cold, I know it's all good, 'cause now I'm the best of myself. Yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. I have tried so hard to learn how to see what you already saw. You're the one to blame. Ooh. Still wonder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Alexandra. I am your webinar moderator for today. We are in AI and leadership with Grady Batchelor. We're so happy to be back. Today's session is interactive and participatory if you are so inclined. Grady will be taking us through what we have called in our pre-meeting the operationalization of a lot of the principles that have been discussed previously, which is always my favorite part, right? It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. So please feel free to come off mute, type in the chat, whatever you need. Grady will respond in real time, as will I, in case there's anything that was missed. Otherwise, any other technical issues, please let us know. There's some really great offerings coming up this week, so please make sure you check the event schedule. And as always, at the end of the session, I'll be dropping a feedback form that is recommended, not required, into the chat. And with that, Grady, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today, and enjoy your webinar.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate everybody joining today. Today, we're going to be talking about Leader AIQ. And that is something that you may or may not have heard about. It is something that is currently evolving. I feel like when I own the domain name for something, it's really ahead because it hasn't jumped through the roof in terms of what the domain costs. But we're going to be looking at today some of the things that we've looked at in the past, but to contextualize exactly how we would execute the idea of leading with AI. And when I say leading with AI, I'm talking about AI first leadership with the human in the loop. So we're going to be looking at Leader AIQ, the intelligence of the AI first leader. And for us today, and I know, let me go ahead and share my screen really quick before I do a whole lot of talking. Let's see, content only, share sound. Share. We should be seeing this first slide on the slide deck. If somebody could put a 1 in the chat or a thumb up, I can see you over there too. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate that. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about Leader AIQ today, the intelligence of the AI first leadership. I really, really hope that we'll be able to collaborate today, not just one-way presentation on my part. And the reason being is because where I'm at with my research and where I'm at with the book really is at a point where getting your input, your feedback in terms of how relevant some of these concepts are, how they strike you, really, really is valuable. And like I said, I pull from research information when I pull this together. So it's not just a off the top of my head approach to how things are done, but it is looking at how things can be done, how things are being done, and how we can evolve as leaders. So today we're going to explore the concept, like I said, of Leader AIQ. I'm Dr. Grady Batchelor, and I'm one of your colleagues. I am one of the Chief AI Officers here, and my book that is very, very soon to be released now is the AI First Leader, Leadership through the LEAD framework, the LEAD framework. And today, like I said, as we go through this, leadership or Leader AIQ represents a new type, if you will, of leadership intelligence emerging in the age of artificial intelligence. Basically, what we're looking at is for decades, we've talked about leadership capability in terms of IQ, our cognitive reasoning, EQ, emotional intelligence, and now we must add another layer, and that is AI is becoming embedded in how organizations make decisions, process information, and design systems. And we today now shift from being the knower and the person of knowledge and decision making to being the designer of systems as we move forward, because literally we no longer can be the source of all knowledge. Our competition is too big. So Leader AI represents the capability to lead in this environment. So it's not about coding. It's about designing organizations where humans and machine intelligence work together effectively. And that requires us as a human to do that. So this presentation is based on the idea the future of leadership is less about making the right decision and more about designing the systems that generate better decisions continuously. And I want to emphasize that when I talk about that, I'm talking about the human in the loop. The human's still ultimately the decision maker, but the difference is now we're going to be faced with making literally hundreds, if some cases not thousands of decisions, and leveraging technology to actually be able to do that for us. And while that may seem daunting, while that may seem like no way that's going to happen, the reality is it's already happening. So it's a matter of figuring out how do we compete on smaller scales and really at a larger scale as a smaller organization, or as a larger scale as a medium-sized organization, or just keep up in the future in a larger organization. So as we go through this, I want you to think about what decisions in your organization today are already influenced by algorithms or AI systems in ways that's totally unique compared to what it was just 6 months or a year ago. Does anybody have any examples of decisions that have just really changed for your organization based on the influence of algorithms or AI systems? I'm watching over here in the corner to see if anybody's jumping in. Okay, I'm going to throw one out there because I'll tell you, if you'd have told me 6 months ago, because I've been learning about this over the last year, but if you'd have told me 6 months ago that I was going to be automating things in my operation where, I really, when everything started in this 2-3 years ago, after November 2022, when all of us got our hands on what was happening with generative AI, I saw how I was able to do more faster, improve my quality in terms of what I was doing. But now, 6 months ago, I started leveraging workflows to where the AI is actually doing work. I'm coming back to check it in a way I never did it before. And I'm a small business, and I've actually been able to, and this is not good for consultants, but I've been able to, in places where I could still do the work in terms of the decision making, have been able to eliminate cost for me, both from a systems perspective and from a human perspective. So not as it only large companies that are able to leverage it is smaller companies. And the price point at being able to do it is amazing. Leveraging technology to be able to do competitive analysis now and have it in terms of AI workflows where I just dump information into Airtable that I need to be looked at from different perspectives and leverage technology like Apify solutions and things to be able to do research that I could not do even 6 months ago. So let me go down here. I'm going to try to move my going to move my chat box up here where I can see it more effectively. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm catching this. Example is okay. Then how I market, fulfill, and deliver services. Paul, would you mind sharing with us some how you do it? Because I don't want it to just be my examples today if we can help it.
I'm just using AI to really kind of as a thought partner and a force multiplier. So when I'm trying to make decisions on what types of services, the research is a lot easier because instead of having to go around and figure out what to Google and then chase through the Google threads or whatever, I can put it into one or two AI, and I usually use at least two, one or two of the AI products, and compare those answers. But those answers are usually more in depth. I use it to help me write code because that's mostly what I do is mostly doing code and such. I use it to help me write code. I use it to help me review the code, and then through AI, it's become easier to actually deliver the services where some people don't need a full website spun up. They just want, they just need an N8N automation or something like that tied into one of their programs. So it's opened a lot of doors, and it's allowed me to offer services faster and get them offer better services and get them done faster for more clients. So.
Great. Thank. That's an excellent example. I'm going to ask Anthony if he'd share too, because my guess is Anthony's is going to build on somewhat some of the things you shared. But that's key. And I'll tell you what I was talking about was leveraging N8N and AI in terms of workflows, in terms of what I was doing, and since integrating into the Claude code to where now a lot of what I was doing before with N8N, I'm not even doing that anymore. I'm going in and spot checking as opposed to actually doing a lot of the figuring out the flows and things. So Anthony, would you mind building on that? You said it's how you partner to build tools and agents in your business.
Yeah, so in terms of, I'm in a startup. I'm basically building out my consulting firm, and with that, in terms of building that infrastructure, I went down the OpenClaw path, deviated a little bit because I was initially using ChatGPT to help me, and in working with Manus, ChatGPT was helping me with the build since I'm not a coder. Manus was helping me with the strategy. Along the way, I shifted and basically realized that putting Manus, leveraging Manus as the architect, as the structure, to help partner with me in driving this, without me not knowing not knowing coding, not knowing all this, putting more on Manus to basically create this entire world of OpenClaw, really transformed my ability to move my organization, my consulting firm forward. And so, being able to expedite everything that I'm doing, not just, as a partner, but also now not just leveraging Manus in the way that others do. I have Manus in my Mac Mini. So
oh, nice.
It's a different construct, and he's training my lead agent to be like Manus. Whenever he deprecates, which my first Manus did. So it's just an interesting twist on things as I'm learning and integrating different constructs with AI.
Very nice. Very nice. Appreciate the examples. And the thing about it is that for those of you who aren't already doing this, I can assure you what they're talking about is actually quite complex. As we first start learning it, it seems far more complex. It's less complex over time, but the reality is what we're able to accomplish today is I still consider phenomenal. And somebody this morning called me and asked me, how do you keep up? And I think the others could agree with this, that as we go forward on this, one, as leaders, we don't necessarily have to be the ones that keep up on all the details, but when we're in small organizations, solopreneurs, or we're a handful of consultants working together, even 10 or 20 consultants, oftentimes it truly is quite the undertaking in terms of what you need to be on top of. But from a decision-making perspective, I think even if you are and I use this when I say just the decision maker, because that's one of the most important parts. But when you're the decision maker, you still need to have awareness of all these things to be able to, I feel like, to be effective in what you're doing. We're going to talk about that some in a little bit. So let's say, I want to make sure we don't have anything else here. Okay, you try, but it all moves so fast. Completely agree, Paul. And I know for me, and I don't know about the others, and feel free to jump in, but literally it has been a matter of the forced niche, in terms of I am focusing specifically on how to use a lot of these different capabilities on very specific niches. So like mine is still wide in terms of the leader AIQ and how you leverage it in leading organizations, but just helping from that perspective, where I've got one focus on how I leverage the tools, is actually very helpful. The other is figuring out quickly which tools are too risky for me, which risk equation am I too averse to make sure that I don't go down the path. And right now, there's about 4 tools that are really moving fast, besides the others that are continuing to move fast. And as a result of it, it really has helped for me to be able to go, okay, I feel like there's just too much risk with this. I'll wait on it as I go forward. There's less risk over here. So like, for example, and my hat's off to I'm pretty sure it was Anthony, or if it was Paul, you're using the OpenClaw. I have pulled back from the OpenClaw. I'm using the Claude Code and things. I'm waiting to see, but any of you have been on here before and know that I'm tend to be very strictly a US based company orientation in terms of what I'm doing. So with that said, I want to jump over here, and I am going to move over here so I can move forward. Okay. Let's go backwards. Okay, let's try this again. I decided today I would keep my presentation. Oh, no, that's not what I want to see. Okay, there we go. I want to make sure. Okay, I love Notebook LM slides. So this week I opted not to capture them and move them into Gamma so that I would have them there. I will share them and things after the fact, but my ability to be able to leverage this, I'm so thoroughly enjoying. So AI is already an invisible layer of saturation. I'm going to move this a little faster because I've talked about this before. This is one of the key tenets of my book up front, is that it's basically it's already happening. It was already happening when we started talking about this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. One of the most important ideas to understand is that AI adoption, it's already happened. It is happening. It's continuously happening. For those of us who are going, how do you keep up? And those of us trying to keep up, it's happening all the time. So many leaders think AI is still emerging. So there are things emerging, but it's emerging fast. And but in reality, AI is already embedded in basically our recommendation engines, our supply chains. When you go to the store to pick up food, when you decide what you're going to watch on television, fraud detection, customer analytics, forecasting systems. The challenge is that how much the influence is invisible. And that is, it's happening behind the scenes, whether you realize it or not. So in this slide, what we're illustrating is that there's basically an iceberg. There's a visible portion in the AI tools leader, and we consciously use those. But much larger portion is below the surface, and that's what we see with all the construct over here. And it's algorithms already influencing our decisions. It is things that we don't even realize, that we didn't see content that we might, in some cases, should have seen. The reality is that it gets decided before we get to it. Something basic, and it's not entirely AI, but it is AI and machine learning driven. If you've ever gone to a relative or friend's house and watched Netflix and go, wow, that looks like a great show. And then you go back and you try to figure out, why have I never seen that? That's because they use algorithms to be able to decide what they serve up to you based on your viewing patterns. If you're like my wife and I, we both view off of the same account. So we have a very schizophrenic approach to watching television. And so therefore we get some strange viewing patterns and things. But the point being is that it's already decided what we're going to get. And this same thing happens in our decision making at business too, because things are already being decided for us. If you're on social media, same thing. So it creates an awareness gap in terms of what happens around us. If leaders do not recognize the hidden layer, may unwittingly or unknowingly cede strategic control to systems that we don't fully understand. And that also plays into my deciding what risk factors I'm willing to work with when it comes to new technology. I'm generally not risk averse, but at the same time, I really want to know that I'm going to be able to access information to be able to learn as much as I can and make sure that I'm not seeing something that I should. And looking, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, looking for signals, that's trying to figure out how do we look at all these different signals and things that we may not be seeing. And I'm going to talk about a concept called the strength of weak ties, and the fact that weak strength or weak links often are things that are really important to you. Let's see here.
So Grady,
Anthony
just
has
a
a
quick,
raised hand, Grady.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
yeah, it's fascinating because I'm actually I'm writing a leadership book on AI as well. And so in terms of where you are right now with the construct of the risk averse and also leadership driving AI as a AI first construct is very interesting in terms of the dynamic. And so much of it as as a prior executive, it's about how do you mitigate risk and how do you weigh
Yes.
that risk in terms of moving forward as a leader. What do we need to be thinking through for the organization where that is the risk reward balance and that type of dynamic. And I think there's so much value in how we think through risk and the reward and where that organization is and where each individual leader is. It's fascinating because as I was mentioning earlier, in terms of using a tool, Manus is very expensive to help me strategize and
Yes.
architect OpenClaw. And people were like, well, why would you do that? Well, actually, it's been very, very helpful in a lot of ways. But I've also told it, you are too expensive. Well, you need to build out a different the core agent. It resisted every step of the way. It wanted to do everything. And I had to basically say, you're going to deprecate, you're destroying yourself. So you've got to build this other agent to basically be your legacy. So, and so much of that is in the real world as well. People don't want to give up their or share their decision making. They want to
Yes.
they want to lead as directors, executives, and so creating this AI first leadership construct is going to be very, very hard. It's that transition, but I think it's framing it more as co-leadership and co-designing,
Yes.
because getting an individual who's an executive to say, I'm going to do an AI first construct is, I mean, it's just antithetical to them.
Yes. No, I agree. And I will tell you, that's been something I've been struggling with. When I first started down the path of writing the book and came up with the name, AI first made sense. The human in the loop is really, so it's more human in the loop plus AI. The catch is that after doing going out and polling and everything else around titles, that one kept coming back. So I struggle too with that concept because I feel like it's to me, it's more like AI augmented leadership as opposed to AI first leadership in the concept. But I appreciate the feedback because that is something that I likewise struggle with because I still believe very strongly in the human in the loop. Nothing should, I'm really of the perspective that nothing should be going out without a human looking at it somewhere. Now, whether they leverage systems to be able to do it, because I'm able to use dashboards and things like what you're probably using with the Cloud Code, to where you can actually monitor your agents and actually watch what they're doing and where they're at and everything, and then be able to also, you're still involved in the process, even though everything's happening behind the scenes. If not, I'm making an assumption there, but I know it's possible, at which point we never completely give it up, but we're magnifying the heck out of what we're actually able to do. So let me
It comes
jump.
down to governance. I mean, just like
Yes.
for a company, you build your open cloud with strict guardrails and governance, and that's why, I mean, me writing all this crap would have been impossible. That's why I have Manus
Yep.
writing it and doing it and leading it, and constitutions and all sorts of things. So it's just nice to create those strong guardrails, and also just like Steve Brodson said, you need to have monitoring. So I have a
Yep.
watcher. So really, building the infrastructure to protect and de-risk.
Exactly. No, exactly. And the other part is being able to, so you do that, but then also I think there's the guardrails, there's the governance structure and the policies and everything. And then I think it's always evolutionary. How do I actually build other agents or build into my agents to help be able to monitor these things? And I know that may sound like an oxymoron to a lot of people like military intelligence, but the reality is that, I mean, it does, because I know that I'm constantly looking at how can I build something in to double check something that I am concerned about in the process of what I'm doing. So let me jump down here again really quick. Okay, so I'm going to go through this really quick here in terms of our era of speed and the humans, or the human speed and leadership. Let me jump back up here, and how it's collapsed, because this is something that I think can often be really scary for people in terms of how it's collapsed, because historically leadership worked because information moved slowly. Decisions moved up the hierarchy, leaders analyzed information and made judgments. AI changes the model because now AI systems can analyze data and machine speed, which is something we can't do. Detect patterns humans miss. Operate continuously, 24/7, 365 days a week. So the implication is profound. Leadership can no longer be based solely on being the smartest person in the room. In fact, I personally always believed that leaders who thought they were the smartest people in the room were probably borderline on the dumbest people in the room, because the reality is that you can always get more out of leveraging multiple people. I think it was General Crystal that I heard, General McChrystal, that gave a speech at a graduation, was talking about when he was appointed to a position and he showed up and he thought, there'll be plenty of people there that know more about this than I do. And when he showed up, he said, guess what? I found out I was the smartest person in the room. He goes, that was terrifying for me, because he goes, it was day one. But the point being is that he liked to not be the smartest person in the room. And I've heard many leaders talk about that, because I personally would rather surround myself with people who know more than I do and help guide and lead and nurture those people, as opposed to me expecting that I'm going to be the smartest person in the room. So instead of leadership being about being the smartest person in the room, it becomes about designing environments where basically intelligence flows effectively in between, among the people, and how we actually leverage it. So it's a shift from decision maker to system architect. And I think that is something that, for me, I was excited about in the beginning, and I love that concept. But literally, it is a major mind shift to go from being the decision maker to how do I design systems that allow me to make decisions at the key points, and or have other people, because in many cases my virtual assistant makes decisions that I don't make, and it's because she is in a better position to make the decisions than I am at the different touch points. So it's literally going from that, I must be the decision maker about everything. And Anthony mentioned that. I worked for an organization where the CFO had to make all the decisions about finances. Guess where was the bottleneck on literally everything? And it wasn't just decisions, it was also signatures. And therefore everything kind of just stopped there for a long time. Then it was about adding an assistant CFO and then adding in technologies and things. And over time, they got more comfortable with risk. The organization got more comfortable with moving the decisions out. So where a decision model makes in your organizations or organizations that you work with, where do you see big bottlenecks? There was an example of one that I had, and I still see those in a lot of organizations where it's literally the human is the bottleneck.
Well, in my prior organization, it was my CIO. I actually, as an executive, had to create and drive my own AI initiatives despite my CIO, which was fascinating, given my experience in the space of informatics. But I basically, you know, just it was being part of your leadership, getting people all up to speed and in sync in a large organization is very challenging.
Yes.
And when one person, the chief information officer, basically is resistant to AI, it slows things down, especially when your CEO is basically delegating that responsibility elsewhere. And so trying to move things forward and work around the CIO makes things challenging, but you got to do what you got to do to make progress. And so, yeah,
Exactly.
challenges.
And one of the things there is then managing that happening so that as you move the organization forward, you can help educate everybody else around you how to do it effectively so that all of a sudden you don't have 25 different projects going on using 25 different approaches to what was going on. And that was one of the things that we ran into both in the organization I work for and some of the organizations I've worked with, is where the CIO was oftentimes the one that was risk averse to using the technology. And then the CFO was risk averse into terms of who controlled the decisions in terms that were being made. And then the thing I found more often than not, as I did in the consulting, was that those would often pair up, and they had two different reasons why they were being risk averse, supporting one another, which made it that much more difficult to break down the barriers. And therefore a lot more initiatives or exerted force was taking place to keep people from actually using it. And it generally was when they woke up to the fact that if we don't use it, one, they would lose people. People would leave. I don't want to be here if this is what's happening in the organization. But the other was that if we don't do it, not only are we going to lose people, but we're not going to be able to be as effective going forward. And as they would start seeing that, now it's a lot more prevalent than it was 2-3 years ago. I mean, it's in your face if your organization's not using it. In fact, I said I thought 2-3 years ago that the financial services arena was at a huge risk. It's very human driven. And there are a couple of models now that are being leveraged from an AI perspective. And there are new companies that are being formed that leverage the AI that I think really are going to see a tremendous reduction in people in the financial services arena. And I know if you're in that arena, I apologize, but it is a reality when you start looking at how much is being laid off in that arena and what could really be done, especially if you look at other countries that don't have the sheer number of people that we have in financial services because they leverage technology. So here we go. So our value shifts by making the call to designing systems. So let me. And here, so on this slide, what we're going to do is we're going to use the metaphor of the chess piece. And basically what we have done here is it used to be that the chess piece was about moving it around on the board. Now it's about transforming it into a blueprint. Historically, people succeeded by making great moves. And that was both in the military and that was in commercial organizations. Everything was like playing a game, and it was about how did you move your players on the board. In fact, I know several leadership books that are written around that concept of the game board. But in an AI environment, the greatest leverage comes from designing the board itself. We throw all the pieces out. We redesign the board in terms of how it works. So that means that leaders increasingly create decision architectures. We manipulate how the information systems work. We create different feedback loops. We look at what's working, what's not working, and we re-engineer that. And then the learning environment has changed in terms of what we're dealing with. So your personal bandwidth limits how many decisions you can make. And this was where I was talking about early on. But systems architecture can generate thousands of intelligent decisions simultaneously. This is what the slide calls systematic leverage or systemic leverage. And for me, where I was talking about being able to do more things, I can literally now, and many of you probably already doing this, so this won't sound as wowing, but for others it may, is literally all of my social media gets produced in one day. 30 days worth of social media produced in one day. And the majority of it is I think through. So I think like a systems designer, built a design system, and I drop all my components in, and I leverage AI to take one prompt, turn it into multiple prompts around the context of a single thing. And then I'm able to come back later in the day after my VA has looked at everything and identified things that she feels like I should look at. And then I can look at the final in a dashboard that now visually provides it all for me. And it used to take me weeks. I'd spend most of the month getting out at least something on a daily basis. So it's amazing what can be done leveraging workflows and things now to be able, so now I can focus more on the decision things, more on thinking about my company as I go forward. So where could design, or where basically could designing a better decision system outperform relying on individual expertise? Where are some areas that you don't currently do this that you think would be beneficial, or that your clients don't currently do this that you think would be beneficial? Or is there a decision that your company should quit centralizing? So I'm going to share with you that this last week, I had been thinking about this, and I will give credit to somebody else for actually taking the action first, and then me going, that thing I've been thinking about would have been well worth it, and now I'm going to do it. I literally, over the last 2 weeks, made a decision that there are things I am currently doing in my business that are in fact making me money, and in some cases making good money. But there are things in my business that I have decided are not of enough value, even though they're making money, and for somebody else, they would be making good money, that I am literally going to stop doing. Some of the things are things that I can't effectively automate the workflows, and in others, it is just sheerly, I'm going to see if I can give it away to somebody else that might actually use it. I just realized that there are things that are better use of my time, and I'm in a unique place in life, that I'm a consultant, but I'm also what I classify as semi-retired, and I just decided there were things that were more important to life than the things that I was working on. And sometimes I think making the decisions of, these are things that my organization should either stop centralizing and get other people to do, or these are things just that my organization should stop doing. I'm going to give one other example. This happened during the first Gulf War. I was put in charge of an area that was putting out like, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 100 reports a day for all kinds of intelligence reports and stuff. And they were coming through, and I was noticing there was a lot of overlap in different ones. And then there was a lot that I was like, I'm not even sure anybody's going to use this. So I made a decision one day, and everybody thought I was going to get fired and somebody else would be in charge the next day. I made a decision that tonight, we're not going to send out any of the reports. All we're going to send out is we're going to send out a communication. If you are missing a report, please let us know. We took, like I said, somewhere between 50 and 100. I know it was over 70. We took that and we immediately shrunk that list to 25, because that's how many nobody ever, literally, by the time the war was over, literally nobody had asked for those things, and we were filling the needs for what was asked, and then we were able to consolidate too by asking our customers what exactly is it you need, and we were able to modify some of those and consolidate them. So through the automation that we've got now, the capability is so much more incredible. I just share that because I think there are things often we're doing inside of our organizations that we need to quit centralizing where the decisions are being made, and then also literally think about, do we even need to be doing this? Any thoughts or comments on that? None. Okay.
No,
Great.
Paul, I'm so
Great.
sorry. Paul had a hand raised.
Okay, Paul.
No, I was listening to your story. I was listening to kind of what you were talking about with your business, and I think that that's one of the unspoken promises of AI.
Yep.
But it's a process where the first thing you do is you use AI to get rid of the boring underlying daily tasks that are just taking way too much time out of your day. And
Yes.
that gives you the freedom to look at your business and to start to create dashboards and metrics and other things so that you can actually see what your business is doing, which then brings you to the point that you're at where you are able to identify that, while yes, these things are valuable and they do make me money, they're not really making me the money. You know, if I can get $10 here, or for the same effort, I can get $500 here. The $10 was nice, but let somebody else do the $10. I'm going to do but getting people to understand that going through that process gets them to the point where they can have that visibility and make that decision,
Mhm.
keeps you from having to do some of the shock and awe, like you talked about, where you just didn't send out the reports
Yeah.
to get people to come to the realization that they didn't miss them, they didn't need them, and probably to this day don't even realize that they didn't have them. So using AI, and it's one of the things, I was on a call last week, and one of the people on the call said that every time she does something, for her business, she writes down on a post-it note what she did. And every time she does it again, she puts a little tick mark. And when she gets 5 tick marks on that post-it note, she automates it. And then she throws out the post-it.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's something I've started to suggest to my clients, is because they're all like, well, I know AI can do this, but how do I do it? I said, well, here's the easiest way. Start writing those things down and checking. And when you get those 5 tick marks, either you automate it or you call me and we'll automate it together.
Mhm.
And that's been one of the tools that's helping me to grow. And I'm hoping to at one point get beyond that type of work, just like you're getting beyond some of the things that you were doing. But unless I continue to measure what I'm doing, I don't see it. But AI makes it easier to measure.
Yes.
But it takes time to
Yeah.
set up that system and to put that system in place. And that's where people are balking because they don't want to spend that upfront time to
Yep.
but it's the same story we've been dealing with for the past 700, 800 years, 1,000 years. People don't want to put in the time, and those that do get the benefit.
Exactly.
I love what you said, Paul, because it's so important. And I'm an ideas person. They just keep coming, and I can't I'll forget it if I don't capture it really quickly. But about 50 ideas a day about something. And so what I started doing was putting all of my ideas in Manus and saying, I want you to track every idea. And so now it catalogs all of them in OpenClaw on a whole spreadsheet, on a spread, and it analyzes them, captures all of the, if I copy and paste something, it captures. So every idea is in a repository, and then it turns into a project over time. And, getting back to the architecture construct, that was my, here's the vision, here's where we need to go, here's what I'm the chairman, I'm the visionary.
Yep.
I want the agents to be the architecture.
Exactly.
I want, I'm co-designing, but hey, you come back to me with the final plan, and I want the top expert to figure out where we're going. Here's the idea, the direction. Here's where we need to be in 10 years. Here's where we need to be in a year. That's my job, and so you're right. Depending on where you are, and if you have architecture in an organization, then you're limited by that architecture, those limited LLMs. Then you do what you have. Um,
Yep.
and so so for example, I'm using multiple free LLMs right now. and I want
Mhm.
to. I told Amanis, I was like, I want to maximize because I don't know when it's going to go away. But I have high level free LLMs. We want to leverage 100%. Work 24 hours, partially build it all. We can finish up the builds later. At least we've spent the ROI on that is significant in terms of the amount of coding effort that can be done. So I'm trying to,
Yep.
so at the end of the subject here is um, where I am in terms of the leadership structure, but also where I need to get the infrastructure to be to be able to execute on my ideas and my strategies and where we're going.
I'm
Um,
actually in the process of building or rebuilding an infrastructure, and it's going to move towards what you're talking about, but I'm building it from the memory up because that's been the issue that I've had with AI is that it doesn't remember who I am, and
mhm,
it's hard to transfer the conversation I'm having in one AI to the next AI to the next AI. So I saw a thing, I think it was by Nate Jones or Nate B. Jones, where he talked about creating an underlying database where everything that you do in any AI you force into that database, and that
mhm,
database is written in a vector format, so that
yep,
you then use an MCP to plug each of your AIs into it whenever you want. So any AI you're using has all of your knowledge, but all of your knowledge is in one place.
mhm,
And then you can connect OpenCall into it. You can connect Manus, but you can use anything you want. And as like you were talking about, where you got, you're getting these three great AIs for free, taking all of the stuff you're doing in there and pushing it in, but you can still use Manus or OpenClaw or whatever to then dig in and review that stuff. I've got 25 years of knowledge sitting in Obsidian that I can't
Mhm.
use efficiently, so that's where I'm going to start. That's going to be my
Yep.
beginning knowledge base. And then
yes,
this way, any AI has access to all of that 25 years of history
mhm,
when it's helping me make decisions and helping me go through my daily processes. And once I get that kind of perfected, because he's got some great ideas, and then I've been watching the conversations between those ideas where other people are expanding on it and changing it and stuff. So I think for each person or each company or each enterprise, it's going to look a little bit different. But I think
Yep.
we're all
mhm,
going to end up moving towards that place where the pain point that we need to get over today is memory, and where
yeah.
those memories are stored so that we don't have to keep having the same conversation over and over and over, wasting our time. We can continue
Yep.
our conversations and we continue them across platforms.
Yeah,
So
I
Exactly.
think from a leadership AI perspective, right? The very much consistent with what the leadership that you're building within the open cloud form, the agentic area, and so giving and empowering the skills of the human leader in the exact same ways you're empowering the skills of those agentic models, and thinking through how you do that is so critical. I basically give all sorts of stuff and I say, here, you figure it out. What's the
right.
best? And I say, I specifically say, I don't know. No human knows. I want the not just what we know. There's a lot of unknown unknowns. You figure it out, and Manus does it. It comes up with brand new, out of the box constructs. But that's what we're asking of our humans too. How can you reimagine the future being this AI first leader? In terms of what Grady's saying, how do we transform where we are to where we need to be? Because nobody knows. This is a new frontier.
It's
Exactly. Well, the thing I think you're both right on top of exactly where people that have been working with this for a while, and it's at different stages for different people. But that, how do you centralize? So I talk about it oftentimes about building a brain, one centralized brain. And as Paul was talking about, you got 25 plus years of experience and things, and you're trying to go back one and get them. And Katie, Alex may have been involved in this. I went back and I asked, could I get a copy of all the hours and hours of presentations I had done for the chief AI officer group, because I was trying to build the brain around my different topics. And I had literally over 20 hours of leadership topics that I talked about. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to actually recreate this. And they were gracious and helped me to be able to get it all. And I was able to turn it into transcripts and then vectorize it. But getting that to where you're in a platform that it can be used across different. And I think, I don't know about y'all, and I'm going to ask this. So what I'm going to do too, just to let y'all know, we're at 150. So there's more slides.
Grady,
Can't hear you, Grady.
sorry, your sound cut out.
Nope, can't hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
You're back. There you
Okay. Not sure what I did, but good. So I'm going to go ahead, but I wanted to keep on track with this right here. We may just pick up on the next evolutionary step of being the leader AIQ next week, because I'm curious for those of you like Paul and Anthony and others that are doing this. How are you leveraging like your legacy connections, if you will? So I've got stuff in Google, I've got stuff in Dropbox, I've got stuff in, all over the place. How are you approaching this? Because I know for me, I have adopted a system that it basically leverages Claude, and it leverages the ChatGPT, but it's its own brain system where literally I'm connecting out to different sources and things, and I'm still working with it, but in essence, it's thinking in one area, but it's connected to all the other areas. In fact, I have better organization in Google Drive than I ever have, because I don't do it. I don't do naming or anything. It does it all for me in the process. So I'm curious how you're approaching this, because I know with others I work around the world with that literally this is a point of thought for so many people. So how are you approaching this? So because you've got all these different sources coming into it.
There, right now, the concept that I'm working towards is taking all of that information and stuff that's in Obsidian, I'm going to leave in Obsidian. That's that 25 years of history,
Yep.
but I'm going to connect to it through so everything is going to live in a Postgres database, and that Postgres database is going to be on a server that I have control of, so that it's mine and I can grab, I own it and I can do what I need to do with it, make sure that it's backed up, etc. But the way that the system is supposed to work is that after I've had a conversation with Claude, I can say, take summarize this conversation and put it into this project in whatever I name, whatever I call the database in my brain, put it in this project in my brain. And then I can go into ChatGPT and I can say, hey, last week I was working on this project, bring back these, I know we talked about these 3 points, bring it back and let's dive in deeper. Or I can bring it up into Perplexity or Manus, which I love. Anthony Manus is like the first AI that I really started using, and I got away from it. I need to get back into it because it's agentic first, which just makes it so much more powerful than most of the other ones. But the concept is that all of that information is stored in that Postgres database, and it's stored in a way that AI reads it, because most of the time we try to store the data in a way that we read it. If we store it in a way that AI reads it, then it's there. And if we need to be able to read it or see it, we can tell our AI to create a dashboard, give us the visual with the information that we need, showing us the connections that it's able to dig across projects or within a specific project. And then if we want that dashboard to persist, then you publish that dashboard onto your, into your domain space that you can access from anywhere. Or if you don't want people to have access to it, you leave it on your local machine. So it gives you the freedom of the various layers, but it gives you a single source of truth for all of your information. And then the ability to dive into your stored information from years and years and years before the tools that we have today even existed. But then you can tie it into Google. I mean, you can tie Manus into Google Drive. You can tie Claude into Google Drive, tell it to go in, pull stuff out, put it in, so all of your tools, because you have one place and you're looking at it not as a silo, but you're looking at it as a system, you can tell the system how to use itself to get information from wherever the information exists, or to go and find it if you don't know where it exists.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's so much of a dance between the human and the leader, right? The AI. And so,
Right.
It's these systems, they can produce so much content. I mean, Manus produces so many. I mean, I have it producing a markdown file for almost every output. And I have a lot of, I'll never go back through. I mean, it's just a lot. And so what I what I've done is I was thinking, so today I said, I have all these ideas. I want you to start cataloging them. I want you to start putting a number, cataloging them onto our dashboard, and having a system, systematizing everything so it's um, easy for the human and for the AI to go back to one source of truth for that collaboration. If I'm coming up with an idea that's duplicative, I need to know where is it going to harm what's already in production versus not. I need to understand where we are with, and from the human, because I can come up with a lot of ideas, and if it's conflicting with where we are with the build, then that's an issue. We need to reconcile that. And so much of it, you need to have a library, and so I built it. Well, I didn't build it. That's what came up in terms of so thinking through whether you're building your own infrastructure with Manus, which having Manus build it for you. People are actually using Manus as a de facto OpenClaw, which is I think fascinating. The only thing is it's deprecating over time, but it can do all these things that OpenClaw can. So it's really nice. And Manus is so much more conversational. That's why I love it, just like you, Paul. And so the value of where we are with the human in the loop versus the leader, I think it's that dance of getting that information and not just creating crap for creations, really creating what you need and being able to find it and make sure, and leverage it in the right way to, but that handoff and I've been struggling with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a big struggle for a lot of people who are at the place we're at or already got there before the rest of us in terms of this, because I don't know, surely to goodness, people who are smarter than me are out there thinking about how to, for me, I think about it in terms of like a blockchain capability, which ironically, the way it all works behind the scenes with the vectorization and stuff and the key connections is a very similar concept where literally I don't have to go and ask questions and extract information from ChatGPT so that I can get my 4 years worth of conversations and thoughts and everything to move them to Claude and then cringe and think, okay, how long will it be before I have to move this to somewhere else to do this? Because it does seem from a vectorization perspective, if you had a key that, which we all know those exist, but had a way to be able to do it in a process where you could lock all your keys into something that was very secure so that it can pass data, because the manual approach that has to be done now, and I don't know if any of you have downloaded a database from ChatGPT and then tried to move it somewhere else, that in its own right is its own challenge. And in my case, was never sure that everything moved or even made sense when it came out on the other side. But there surely has to be something moving forward that would allow that capability, because otherwise it would be like having, in my mind, to lower it down, it would be like having PCs and Macs that couldn't communicate with one another. Because that's in essence what we've got created to a certain extent, is we've got very, very sophisticated, or it's like three of us getting in a room and we won't talk to one another. Only when you ask us a question that's specifically relevant. And that boggles my mind with how powerful the systems are, that literally it's the being able to ask questions to get your content from point A to point B is the thing that is the most difficult.
What's funny, Grady, to that point, just last week, Anthropic came out, or with Claude, they came out with the button to do that. It gets you, it's a snapshot. It's not the whole,
right,
the whole picture of ChatGPT, but it will give you a zip file to upload into Claude, which makes things interesting.
Oh, it,
But
does, well,
API keys
it does. That's what I was talking about. It was like being able to take that across, because it's still, for a lot of people, that's a complicated process.
Yeah.
And to me, your data shouldn't be that complicated to be able to get it from point A to point B. But again, if the LLMs can't talk to one another where it doesn't require the the mind meld, if you will, to use a Star Trek. I mean, literally, then that's a big limitation, a huge limitation in terms of what we're doing. So it's exciting what you're doing, Paul, Anthony. I'm sure others are doing similar. What I'm going to do is, because we're at 2:00, I'm gonna end here today. I'm gonna pick up unless you just don't want to. I want to go down the path of the Leader AIQ because we really didn't actually get to that to this point because I wanted to cover some of this other stuff first. I'm going to pick up here next week when we get back together. I'll do some summaries and stuff. I will also post the link. Let me do this really quick for anybody who's still left here. I'm going to post the link so you have access to my notebook for this. Let me share it here. Share the, oh, not public, anyone with the link. Full notebook, you'll have access to this. Save this, share it, and then that way you will have access to this and we can pick up here next week and I'll be adding additional stuff into it. Let me find the chat box so I can drop this in here. Oh, here it is. I haven't moved across 5 different screens here, so let's go here. Boom. There you go. So there's the link. You should have access to the notebook now with the stuff in it. I'm going to be putting the book and some other things in there, but I'm also going to be playing with the information I have in there, creating other collateral and things in here. But that way you'll all have access to it. If you can't make it back next week, it'll be recorded and you'll be able to go there if you want to. But I am going to keep adding content to this so you'll have access to it. So hopefully you got something out of today that was worthwhile and valuable. As always, I love working with y'all and enjoy the conversation, especially when we engage in conversation. So thank you very much for your participation and engagement today.
Thank you, Grady.
Y'all take care.
Thank you so much, Grady. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you to the participants, Anthony and Paul, who were particularly awesome today.
Yes.
If you feel like filling out the feedback form, please go ahead and do so. Grady, if you won't mind sending me your presentation so I can post it when the video comes up. Otherwise, everyone stay safe. Have a great day.
Yes. And just so y'all know, the video or the presentation is also available inside the Notebook LM, but Alex will get it up too.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Take care.